Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to a winning edition of the Demon Land podcast. My name is Andy, and joining me again, Grapeviney. Good evening, Grapeviney.
Good evening, Andy, and good evening, Demon Land. It's a good time to be a Melbourne supporter, it seems. 2 games left, 2 very winnable games, and finals on the cusp of finals.
Yeah, I always get very worried when we start talking about winnable games because, as you know as well as I do, we don't perform at our best when we're expected to win. I'm probably a bit more cynical than you are in that regards, but I sort of like being a bit of the underdog.
But we've outgrown that, haven't we? We've won enough times this year. I think that we should have a bit more faith in the boys. It was a close call again on the weekend, but we've had how many must-win games over the year, and we've won a fair majority of them. So our destiny's in our own hands, which is a good place to be.
It is, and one of the topics we were going to talk about tonight, which we'll talk about now because we'll talk more in depth about the game after we bring on our very special guest tonight, who's none other than Mark Jamar. We'll be bringing him on shortly, but before we bring him on, we've got a couple of minutes up our sleeves, and we've got this syndrome that is often, I think it was coined on Demon Land. I don't know who coined it, but it's the Melbourne Football Club supporters syndrome. And do we have an official definition of what it actually is, or is it just the negativity that surrounds this black cloud that surrounds all Melbourne supporters, or the majority of us, thinking that nothing good can ever happen to us?
It's a bit of both. It is just the general negativity, but it's born out of incidents such as, a bag of bricks falling on Christian Salem's head in a commando camp. We could, going back to Stephen Tingay, falling through a plate glass window, whatever bizarre incident that was. So it's born out of, a whole catalogue of instances where we've been, as Demon Blog Adam would say it, where we've been fisted. So it is, there is truth to it.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it's a fairly new thing, but I think it goes back further, considering we've been starved of success for so long. I don't know if I don't believe there's an actual curse out there, but I sort of blame everything about the club on this damn syndrome. But is this syndrome going away? Can we break the shackles of it and see a light at the end of the rainbow?
Well, the question is, does it end if we make finals? Surely at some point we have to have confidence in what we're doing and the club, and many more things are going right than are going wrong. So surely at some point we have to cast it off. Just as we've cast off the bad old days, we're entering a new era. So our mood should reflect that.
Yeah, look, I think if we do make the finals, that's the step in the right direction. And there are steps in the right direction. Even this round sort of prove both sides of the coin that, we are taking steps forward, but, how good was that the first quarter? And we'll talk more in depth about it later, but then we nearly blew a 7-goal lead. And had we done that and ended up losing the game, which we didn't, and, some of that steps in the right direction was shown in the last quarter, but had we blown that lead and lost the game, then that MFCSS is alive and well.
I don't think so, because how many times have we come back from 5 goals down this year? So we've seen it happen a lot in our games where we've been the comeback kids, and 2, we've seen it. It's happened all throughout the competition in plenty of games. So momentum is such a force in modern footy that it really doesn't take much to get going and to kick a bag of goals very quickly. And I don't. We've spoken before about not tarnishing the current crop of players with the sins of years gone by. So,
well, they don't know anything about this MFCSS. We'll keep it to ourselves. And that's sort of evident, I think, when a lot of the media were making a big deal about the North Melbourne not having won, in 14 years or whatever it was. It's been so long ago, I don't even remember. And current coach Goody just says, well, doesn't care about that. It's not relevant.
It's got nothing to do with the current group, exactly.
Yeah.
So, yep.
I mean, I was speaking to Jack Watts the week before that game at a function, and I sort of brought up that fact, and he wasn't even aware. I think he knew we hadn't been in North in a long time, but it only dawned on him when I put it into his head that we hadn't. Yes, it's my fault. That he had never beaten them in his entire career.
Yep.
But yeah, it's look. It's got nothing to do with our current crop, but I think it's in the supporters' heads, and until we start seeing the fruits of the success, it's always still going to be there. We've got 2 weeks to go. We've got 2 very winnable games, and our destiny is in our hands. Only we can fluff it up here. We're not relying on anyone else. If we win those 2 games, we're in the finals. There's no doubt about that. But if we don't make the finals, if we drop 1 or 2 of these games, then, supporters are going to be slitting their wrists, and it's like, woe is us.
Yeah, look, we had an MFCSS moment on the weekend. As St Kilda were coming back, you and I probably both thought or were saying that we were gone. Did we really believe that, or were we just preparing ourselves in case the worst happened?
Well, for me, it was preparing myself for the worst. I sort of go into battle that we already lost, and if we win, that's great. It's but that's just my negativity. I am, in general, I'm a negative person, so it won't be until we can consistently win and win well, and play 4 quarters of footy that I'll be more confident. But I've been saying it all year. I've been saying it on the podcast all year. We can beat anyone. I know we have the ability to go out and beat anyone on our day, and we can go out and we can lose to low place Brisbane, second bottom North, and maybe that's because it's an even competition this year. But I think we can win against anyone and lose against anyone. But it's until we can go into games sort of being quite confident that we're going to win. And I think it's quite rare. There's only a couple of teams over the last decade that can sort of boast that. I'd say most Hawthorn supporters over the last decade have been pretty confident going into games. Geelong supporters as well. Perhaps Brisbane during that period, but yeah, I want that feeling too, as do most supporters.
Coming soon to a theatre near you.
Yes, and I think at that point we're going to just take a short break. You'll hear I'll be playing all the goals from last week's game, and we'll just get our very special guest Mark Jamar on the line. Make sure he can hear us, we can hear him, and then you'll hear us coming back in a moment.
Bait, slicing it in towards half forward. It fell for Martin. Here's a left footer. Oh, he just took a bit too long. Jarrah, need to be clever. Did okay. McKenzie, awkward bounce to 2 big men. Jamar and Johnson. Oh, Jamar, he is a goal-kicking machine. He has 5.
Goal-kicking machine. Our guest tonight played 155 games for the club between 2003 and 2015. During that time, he became one of the premier ruckmen in the league and was rewarded with All-Australian honours and a third in the BNF in 2010, a season when the Demons promised so much. Unfortunately, it was not to be, and in the following years, the club endured a horror stretch with very few wins. After finishing up at the MFC in 2015, he returned for one final fling with the Bombers, playing 5 more games with that club before pulling up stumps. He's one of the few living Demons who can boast of having played in a final. I'm talking about Mark Jamar, of course. Welcome to the Demonland podcast, Mark.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Andy.
How are you enjoying life after footy?
I said to one of my mates, Stephen Salapak, last night, who I play with at St Kevin's Old Boys, he said, "How's your first year out?" And I said, "I've actually loved it. Obviously we miss footy and we love playing with the boys, and, you're around 42 of your best mates every day. But, when that time comes to an end and the pressures of footy are over, you got things to look forward to, like more time with your family, your business interests, and maybe some leisure activities you probably don't get to do while you are playing. So I've definitely enjoyed it. I do miss it, but definitely enjoyed it nonetheless.
So, Mark, you mentioned you're playing with St Kevin's in the amateurs. Are you enjoying that? And how much fun is it to be playing without the pressure and scrutiny that comes, with playing in the AFL?
Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Obviously, the amateurs is a quality competition, and obviously you don't get paid, so there's no pressure that you mentioned. So we're really lucky that we get to turn up to training and games for fun. Of course, our coach Shannon Grant's still very demanding on us, but I think we've got a real good core group of young kids from the college that are now, 19, 20, 21 years old that are starting to blossom, along with a few old heads, 4 or 5 of us ex-AFL guys, which are there just, to provide leadership and pretty much, get the boys up and about. And we've been lucky enough to be probably going to finish on top of the ladder this season. So looking forward to playing finals, which, as you mentioned, I've only played in 2 AFL finals. So it's pretty exciting to be coming up finals this season.
Yeah, good luck for it. You're a standout performer at the 2001 Under-18 Champs and selected in the All-Australian team, yet you were overlooked at that year's draft. How disappointing was that? And what were you expecting going into draft day? You've been contacted by clubs, leading in the lead-up?
Yeah, obviously went to draft camp that year and met with probably 3 or 4 clubs. And when the draft day came around, I was very disappointed. Obviously had a manager and everything at the time, and being the only South Australian in the All-Australian team and playing senior footy for North Adelaide all of that season, I thought, well, surely I'm a good chance to go first round, if not, in the top 22 of the country, considering the All-Australian honours. But, I think when footy finished that year and I was at school, still eating donuts, pies, Coca-Cola, I got fat. And, I think I turned a lot of clubs off. I was 105 kilos as an 18-year-old at draft camp. Nowadays, the young ruckmen that are 198 plus, they're rocking up sort of 96, 97 kilos. So, you can imagine as an 18-year-old rocking up at 105, I probably didn't set a very good standard. But that's probably just a lack of education that I had at the time. I mean, I was a country boy. I'd played 1 year of under-17s at North Adelaide and then went to year 12 in Adelaide and played seniors. So I was in none of the elite sort of underage competitions or anything like that. So my education in terms of diet and all that sort of stuff was pretty limited. So I've only got myself to blame, but that's probably why I never got drafted.
Yep.
So
you were picked up by the D's in the rookie draft. What were your expectations at the time? Did you think you'd ever get a chance to play in the big league and be elevated to the senior list?
Yeah, I think from memory, I wasn't going to come to Melbourne. I was just going to stay in Adelaide and play another year of sample because for whatever reason, that was just what I was considering. And Neil Danaher rang me, I think a few days later, and said, mate, Darren Jolly's got his sister's wedding when the NAB Cup's on. Or I forget what cup it was back then, probably the Wizard Cup, something like that. And he goes, we're going to Cairns and we're going to play against Brisbane, and I don't have another ruckman apart from Jeff. So he goes, I need you to play. You've got to come across and you're going to play in the Wizard Cup. So that sort of twisted my arm a little bit, and I thought, you know what, stuff it, I've got to give it a go. So that's how that sort of all unfolded, and I think from memory I was pretty competitive in the ruck that night, my first hit out in the Wizard Cup, but still had a long way to go before I was ever going to get a senior game, which ended up happening the year after that.
You played second fiddle, as all young ruckmen do, to Jeff White and Paul Johnson for a while. Obviously a time of sort of learning for you. How frustrating, though, is it to be in that role, and how important is it to take the opportunities when they do come your way at that stage?
Yeah, I think the disappointing thing about that was the game time. I was in a team on many occasions, but sitting on the bench for big periods of time. It wasn't really, in those days, 3, 4, 5. There wasn't as much reliance on spreading the load with the rotations. So I think my first game I had 18 minutes game time. That's not even a quarter. So those that was probably the frustrating part, because no one develops their game on the bench. You're probably better off in the VFL getting full games and getting some continuity. But obviously back then you had your main ruckman and then your second ruckman, and I guess for whatever reason Neil chose to play me on the bench. It probably wasn't quite good enough to hold a spot down forward at the time, and that's probably what slowed my development in a way, as well as body and skills. I was never a good kick when I was young, so there was all those factors that contributed to it. But then I'd go back to the VFL and do quite well. I think I come runner-up in Sandy's Best and Fairest when I played only 10 games there in my second year. So I was capable. I just couldn't make it happen at that top level.
So Mark, have you been watching the Ds this year, and what have you made of the efforts of like Tom McDonald and in particular Cam Peterson, who have been forced to take over ruck duties after Gawn and Spencer got injured?
Look, I must admit I haven't been paying a lot of attention to the Ds as such. However, whenever it's on,
don't tell us you've become a bomber after one season.
Well, my wife's not a big footy person, so I've got to, of course, watch the Bomber games because I'm part-time coach there. And then when I can, I sneak in a few quarters of the Melbourne games just to, because obviously I love watching the boys play, and I wish them all the best, and I'm proud of them. And I haven't really been closely watching it, but in terms of what you're saying with McDonald and Pedersen doing the ruck duties, I mean, God, two guys that are undersized in terms of centimetres, but big in terms of heart. And that's one thing you're definitely going to get is a contest when those two guys are out there, whether they're forward, back, or in the ruck. So when Max and Spence got injured, I thought those guys stood up and give it their all.
Speaking of Jake Spencer, he's been really unlucky this year. Obviously came into the side when Max went down, but got injured almost straight away. And then couldn't get a spot back in the side, even when the two pinch hitters were being used. Is there still a role for him at the MFC going forward, do you think?
Well, I can only say from an outsider looking in, and Spencer's one of those guys, he's 203, 105, 6 kilos or whatever he is. He can run, he's got a big tank, he's a tackling machine, he's quick. He can take a mark up forward. He's probably not known for being a reliable set shot or a really big contested mark, but I've trained with him for a lot of years and I've seen him do it, and I know that if I had a ruckman like Max, an All-Australian in the prime of his career, and I needed a number 2, I'd be calling on someone like Jake Spencer for sure.
Yep.
So clubs are being like far more adventurous in their midfield setup these days, and some clubs are even choosing to play without a recognised ruckman. What do you make of that development, and is the ruck position in danger of becoming extinct, like we've seen with pinch hitters going in the ruck at the Ds?
Yeah, look, I hope not, because it's a great art, ruck work, and I still truly believe your midfield's got a great advantage if you've got a ruckman putting it down, someone like Brent Maloney, Colin Sylvia's throat. So, reminiscing a bit there, but I just think that's so valuable. And, of course, the hit out doesn't mean you're going to win the clearance. The clearance doesn't mean your forward's going to mark it or whatever, but it definitely gives you a good chance. And I know how I'd rather be setting up is to a dominant ruckman.
You won All-Australian honours in 2010. How much value do you place on that as a personal achievement, especially now that you've finished up footy and can reflect back on your career?
I think a few days before the awards night, me and James Frawley were in the office at Melbourne, in the off-season, of course. And they're like, do we have to go to this bloody awards night thing? And they're like, yeah, it's compulsory. And I'm like, well, no, we're going home, because he wanted to go to Ballarat. I wanted to go to Port Pirie. So they're like, no, have to go. And lo and behold, we both got named. James on the field and me on the bench, and of course Liam Jarrah got awarded Mark of the Year that night as well. So it's actually a pretty good night. And Neil Danaher told me, he goes, about time you come good. He goes, you cost me my coaching career. Because he was there obviously representing West Coast at the time, so it was good. We got to have a bit of a laugh and all that sort of stuff. And I think at the time I just thought, okay, I've had a good year. I expect to be, in amongst those conversations with the sort of ability I was sort of displaying, and I guess marks going forward, hitting it down the boys' throat, things like that. So, and I think now looking back, it's more like, wow, that's I'm pretty proud of it. I think at the time you sort of just roll with it, and that's great, but it's sort of how you sort of see yourself at the time. But looking back, I'm pretty proud, and obviously very fortunate that Aaron Sandlands and where he was in it, but maybe Dean Cox had sore groins that year, so maybe that helped my cause as well.
Yeah, you talked about reminiscing before, and I was reminiscing myself today when I was trying to pull some audio to bring you in tonight. I was watching a lot of those taps straight down Brent Maloney's throat, and I wanted to get some audio, some sound bites of those things, but the commentators really don't get excited about those amazing taps. They're more so for the high flying marks people take and the goals they kick. So I ended up choosing choosing some audio of you kicking a goal, but. You had a really special relationship with Brent Maloney in the middle. Does Beamer claim responsibility for your success that year?
Oh, look, it's a two-way street. The ruckman's got to put it there, but just as importantly, the midfield's got to get there. I mean, these guys have got, elites like, your Pendleburys and whoever else trying to stop them getting to the hit zone, which, it's not easy, especially when they know who it's going to. But that's when, Brent and I lived together for a number of years. We were best mates, had a lot in common. We really it was probably a bit longer than the sort of 2010, 2011 when it probably sort of started to come to fruition. We're actually working together since, 2004 or 5, when he first came to the club. So it probably took a while to perfect, but we got there in the end. And I said to him the other night, because he was at my place last week for a barbie, and I just said, a lot of times he wasn't even the hit to, but he just ended up with the footy because of his ability to read where it was going, or, maybe just get there to support his teammate who was the hit to, and it bounced the wrong way, and he was able to come up with it. So I think, he was obviously a very special talent and one of the best clearance players in the comp, if not the best at the time. So, I was very lucky for me to have someone reliable like him. And I think it was very lucky for him as well to have someone who sort of hit their peak at that time, which was good for him.
Yep, plenty of clearances, that's for sure, from the two of you. The 2010 season was a bit of a topsy-turvy one. We had some really memorable wins, but also some pretty significant defeats. The general belief, though, in the footy world was that we were on the cusp of finals and a good era. What went wrong in your eyes?
Well, probably can't say too much about what I actually feel. But all I'll say is Dean Bailey was on the right track, and the belief was there with 90% of the boys. The other 10% might be the ones that were out of favour and not getting the game or weren't towing the line or whatever. But I don't think we were far off. I think the ball movement, style of play was very attacking, and we were able to score very quickly. We probably weren't the most defensively minded, and that part of the game did need work. But, that could have been a flow-on, the years after that to sort of perfect that. But I don't really think he was ever able to coach 100% to his abilities. I think he was getting his strings pulled from a little bit higher up, which probably made it hard for Dean to do exactly what he wanted. And we did have a few troubles just with the culture and the sort of stuff like that around the club, with so many young, talented guys just given a game instead of maybe earning it. So that didn't sit too well with a few guys that were probably deserved of getting a game, that probably missed out for these young guys to get games into them, which obviously, you should be made to earn your games. Otherwise, you take it for granted, and maybe it sets bad habits going forward. So I think we're on the right track, and there were maybe just a couple of things that weren't able to be sort of done correctly that were probably out of Dean's hands at the time.
So you endured some pretty challenging times at the D's in the following years, including the infamous 186-point loss down at Geelong, the tanking saga. What was the mood and the environment at the club like during those times, and how hard was it to keep your spirits up when you were on the receiving end of thrashings on an almost weekly basis?
Look, I think it's always tough. It's never easy when you're getting beaten, and obviously we started to get. Well, I think in 2011 we were only a couple of games off finals.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that was the year when we got flogged by Geelong in Geelong, which it's always hard to win there. I think the only time I came close was, I think I might have kicked the goal to draw the game back in 2006. I think we drew down there, but that's the only time I got close to a win there. And that 186 points, that was, no one really saw it coming. I know there was a bit going on behind the scenes that week leading into it, which not everyone was privy to, but a few were, and that may have disrupted things, and things went the way they did. And then obviously Dean got sacked, the next day, I think, which was unfair and unfortunate, but that's the way it went. And I'm pretty disappointed with all that. Obviously, no one likes to lose, let alone lose by that much and be really uncompetitive. Which we were shocking. I think the only thing we won that day was the hit-outs. But we definitely copped some beatings 2012, 2013, and we've seen another coach get let go, and then obviously Roosie came in and steadied the ship of late, and now under Simon the team's really thriving.
You've played more games than anyone else in the number 40 jumper. Didn't you ever want to trade down at some stage to, a lower locker? Once you're established in the ones?
I thought about it when Benny Holland was getting close to retiring. I thought, maybe when Benny goes, I might take the number 4. Yeah. But then, of course, that went to Jack Watts. And I thought, well, actually, no one's played 100 games in the number 40. I may as well be at least the longest or the highest amount of games in the number 40. And then 100 come, 150 come, and... now looking back, I think, because back then we all had the names on the locker if you'd only played 100 games or more.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
And there was nothing from, 30-something onwards. So I was like, I could get my name on the locker here. And then we moved to Amy Park, and the lockers had the name of every player who ever wore that number. Oh.
All that good work for nothing.
I know. Talk about being let down. But no, that's a good initiative anyway in itself. So, I'm sort of proud of that as well in a way, that I don't think anyone wore it the year after I finished, and then obviously it's being worn again now. So yeah, that's footy, and I guess I'm pretty fortunate to have played that many games for the club I love.
And I think you're still in the number 40 Guernsey, is that correct, at St Kevin's?
Yeah, that's right. Chose to have the number 40 this year again, so yeah, it just feels like my number, and yeah, I don't know whether that's a bit silly or whatever, but yeah, that's what I wanted and that's what I got.
Yeah.
Where does the nickname Russian come from?
Okay, so I'm not any part Russian whatsoever. My dad's Dutch and my mum's Italian, so I'm a bit of a Euro, but I think first week at the club, they were sort of, boys were chatting about, Bizzle the Frenchman and Neitz and Schwartz the Germans. And then I think Craig Ellis at the time goes, and the big Russian, big Ivan Drago, the Russian. Because I think I had the short back and sides and the sort of flat top haircut.
Yeah.
And they sort of likened me to the character Ivan Drago out of Rocky. So that's where that came from. And with all good nicknames, if you hate them and you ask politely not to be called them, they stick.
Yeah.
So yeah, got stuck with it, and I absolutely love it. No one calls me Mark. It's either Rush or Russian or Rushki or whatever they want to call me. Even get jars from time to time. So yeah, it is a nickname that I've grown fond of, and yeah.
So Mark, you're at the D's for 12 years and you're rewarded with a life membership. How much value does something like that hold for you when you look back and reflect on your career?
I mean, it's awesome. Never did I thought when I left, my hometown and moving to a big city in Melbourne, going to play with the oldest club in the country, MCG, MCC, all these things. Never did I think that, I'd achieve life membership. Yeah, I think it's great, and I was very honoured to be awarded that night. I took my wife along to the function with me and all those sort of things, and yeah, I'm pretty honoured, and yeah, very lucky.
We've been lucky to have you on the show, and you've been very generous with your time. We've just got two more questions for you. You played last year at Essendon in a team setup that was basically unprecedented, probably in the history of the game, perhaps outside of the years after the wars. But was that just a case of you wanting to play on and thinking you still had more to give? And what was it like playing in that sort of unusual sort of setup?
Well, to take you back a few months prior to that, at the end of the 2015 season, the manager said, the club's keen to extend. And I said, yeah, no worries, let's get the last few games out of the way and then we'll talk about it. And then I went to my interview at the club, after the last game on the Tuesday. And they said, we're not going to go there next year. And I just said, okay. Could have told me that. So I was a little bit blindsided by that and probably didn't get the chance to prepare, and finish the way I'd like to. But that's footy. So anyway, I looked around at the end of that year because I thought, I'd still love to play another year. I really enjoy it and all that sort of stuff. So, but then anyway, I had a few options, and I actually turned down a 1-year contract from another club just because I thought about it and considered it, and it just didn't end up being what I wanted to do. And then I was meant to go to Essendon as coach in January of that year, of the next year, 2016, and went to the club and obviously met everyone, and first session, and then the next day manager rings me after everything that happened, and he goes, Russian, I think they're going to ask you to play. And this is, I think, second week of January. I said, oh, shit, you could have told me. I would have done a pre-season. But, yeah, so that's sort of how that came about. It was sort of just, I was in the place at the time. It was probably a right fit for them. I wasn't in the best shape of my career, but I wasn't the worst. I was probably a couple of kilos heavy, but, I was still given a good contest and still take a mark and win a hit out and all that sort of stuff. So, it took a few weeks to be convinced, but ended up doing it. And it was one of the most fun years I've had for a long time. And, as you alluded to before, when you're getting flogged multiple times in a season and maybe not winning and all that sort of stuff. Footy can get a bit sour and you can sort of get over it a little bit just because of the environment that those continuous losses create. But then to go somewhere that really there was no expectation, no pressure. The only thing they expected was for us to have a crack and do our best and stick to team rules, regardless of result. It was fantastic. And to be playing with another 9 guys from other clubs who either chose to finish or thought they were finished and get another opportunity in a unique circumstance it was great. And everyone asked, what was it like? But it was actually great fun. And, it was, one of the fond memories I've got of footy, that's for sure.
Excellent.
So you mentioned that you're still mates with Beamer. He was over for a barbecue. Are you mates with any of the other boys from your time at the D's? And who do you, if so, who do you still catch up with?
Yeah, so Clint Bartram popped around tonight. I took my little fella to the shopping centre to go to the playground, and Barty rang. He was headed out my way for dinner, and I said, why don't you call in? So, Barty popped round. Jeremy Howe come through my car wash the other day in Toorak there. So organised a free wash for him. So, still speak to Howie quite a bit. Chatted to Cole Sylvia very briefly a few days ago, and just said g'day. I think I heard Lyndon Dunn on Facebook the other day as well. Obviously, I still play with James Strauss at St Kevin's Old Boys, so me and Straussy are pretty tight. Spoke to Tom Couch today. He was with us for a couple of seasons off the rookie list.
Yep.
Well, Sam Blees and I get on really well. You remember Sam Blees, little speedster? So obviously a number of others. So I'm not best mates with all of them, but I've got a lot of respect and time for a lot of them, and as they do me. And I do have every intention of getting back to the club one day for the past players shows and things like that. Because I'll still knock around a little bit with Roe Bale, Jared Rivers, these guys as well. So it's a great thing, footy. It brings people together and you make a lot of friendships for life, and you don't live in each other's pockets when you finish because you all go your own way and you have families, career and all that sort of thing. But it's definitely a good thing, and I think to keep those relationships alive is very important.
Nice. You mentioned your current business venture, the car wash. Do you want to give it a plug to all of our listeners?
Yeah, why not? So one of my interests, me and a couple of mates started up. It's called Pearl Hand Car Wash. It's in Toorak above the Woolworths in the Toc H Centre. So level 2, you have to come in off Jackson Street. So head up there and the manager will give you a good deal and obviously great service. So that's one of the things I sort of worked on while I was playing, and that come to fruition at the start of this year. Obviously, very excited about that, and I've got a couple of other things that I do as well, which I enjoy. So I'm pretty fortunate.
So if you mention the word Demonland, you get a very special discount, I'm sure.
20% off for all Demon fans, all right? 20% off. There you go.
Doesn't get better than that.
I won't be in the Speedos washing the car, but
damn.
I might pop in one day and say g'day.
All right, Mark, we just want to thank you for your time. We really do appreciate you coming on to the show, and it's always great to hear from ex-Demon players. So thank you very much.
We have to mention James McDonald and Nathan Brown, who are coaching in the Amos as well. So I actually bumped into Nathan today in the city very briefly. So they're two really good guys, and got a lot of respect for those two and a lot of time for them. So, it's good to actually rub shoulders with those when we play against them in the Amos and talk about old times.
It's great. We've spoken to like Robbo and Jeff White on this show, and every time we speak to them just before the show, I always have a look at some old footage on YouTube, and it's great seeing all the old guys play. We really had some special players over the years, and James McDonald, he's one of them.
Definitely, 100%.
All right, so thank you very much, Mark, for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
All right, not a problem.
Good on you. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thanks, Mark. Well, that was Mark Jamar, 2010 All-Australian ex-Demon player. And, it was, as I said, it was great watching some of those highlights today of him, just palming the ball straight down, Beamer's throat. And, they had a really sort of special relationship in the middle of the ground there.
Yep, obviously still pals off the field too, which is good to hear. And, that was a interesting interview, particularly the bit about what happened at the end of his last season at the D's, about being blindsided a little bit when told that his services would no longer be required. So that was interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah, you'd like to sort of go out on your own terms as well. I think maybe get the send off from the supporters and all that. That'd be nice as well. But
it seems like they might have changed their mind at the last minute, or perhaps like there was a communication breakdown somewhere along the way. But so you sense he just held back on the. On some of the off-field drama that happened around 186
you definitely get
the Cameron Schwab era.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Great interview, nonetheless.
It's not like we're hard-hitting journalists. We've got to sort of
we don't
hammer
need to
it out of him.
into all that.
We start doing that, and we'll get no ex-players coming on the show.
That's right. And isn't it good? We've spoken about this before. I think when we spoke to Jeff White, we've just had a succession of great ruckmen going back to the days of Straubs and Jimmy, basically.
Yeah. So Straubs,
Brownlows, and all Australians right the way through. So,
and I think even guys like that were only there for a short time. Darren Jolley was a great ruckman, and then obviously proved it going to Collingwood and playing in some premierships. And we've had some good ruckmen over the time, and we've got a pretty good ruckman at the moment. And someone actually should have asked. And
even Steph Martin's playing.
Steph Martin.
He's more than holding his own over in Brisbane. We'll play him this week.
I liked Paul Johnson as well, who played with Mark for a time. But someone sent me a question through Skype just prior to the show, and I forgot to ask Mark this, but he might. I don't know whether he saw. He said he doesn't watch much of the Demons play, but it was about Max this week and what those free kicks against him, and what does he think of the current ruck rules, and what would he have done? What would Mark have done if he was in Max's shoes when those free kicks? So I'm not sure if Mark saw the game, but I'm sure he could have related to that. But
we forgot about that, didn't we?
Yeah, but let's talk about the game, and maybe we'll start there. I mean, I was baffled a number of times when the free kicks were given. I don't even know what the free kicks were for. All of a sudden, it appeared that he was getting jumped into, and then all of a sudden it's a free kick against Max. I don't know.
Not only that, but I watched the replay yesterday for the first time, and there are a whole lot of instances I saw where Max's arm did exactly the same thing, and he didn't get penalised. So there seemed to be no rhyme and reason to it. And 8 free kicks to 0 in that third quarter, and that was a big part of helping them, get that run on, because yes, they lifted, but it was umpire assisted. There's no doubt about that. It's got some incredible decisions going their way. Yeah. Obviously none paid to us. So I think that was, I'm not really one to blame umpires, and I've never thought that they've costed a game, or anything like that. But I thought that they played a part in that third quarter on Sunday.
It was just one after the other after other, and I don't even think they were there. Like, we complain about free kicks and whatever, but I had a look at some of them again, while I was watching replay, and I didn't think some of them were there. And then, we're laying amazing tackles. There was a tackle deep in their forward line, Angus Brayshaw. Perfect tackle, didn't push in the back, didn't pin the arms, he sort of even he took the brunt of the fall so that he would minimise that type of, those injuries to players in tackles. And the guy just dropped. It seems that there's no dropping the ball, there's no holding the ball, there's no incorrect disposal. It's just, and then there'll be a player who goes for the ball. 10 players jump on him, and the umpire will just call dropping the ball when there's no chance a guy can get that out. But then they're missing absolute sitters. That frustrates me to no end. But it certainly did affect the momentum of the game. Those decisions in the third. Now, when we talk about let's talk about some of the good efforts. I'm not sure how we'll do this. Do we go sort of certain player by player and talk about them? And I'll name one. Cam Peterson probably played one of his best games for the club. I think he took like 8 marks. He had 6 tackles and 26 disposals. I thought it was... And
kicked a couple of goals as per usual.
The goal on half-time was crucial. Was crucial as well because they had kicked a couple. I think they'd kicked 3 in a row, possibly, so he just sort of stemmed the tide a bit. But really just... you really stood up and played one of his best games. And when we really needed him, no Jesse Hogan, no Watts, we needed a Cam Peterson to step up, and he did. And
one thing I noticed on the replay was his ruck work was really good.
Yeah,
he's been a great competitor in the ruck all year, but he won some good hit outs on the weekend and set up some good clearances, particularly in that last quarter to Clayton Oliver. So he had a super game and has been rewarded and has agreed to a 1-year contract for next year.
Now, do you think? What do you think of that 1 year? Do you think he deserves extra, or at the moment it's a year by year?
He's obviously happy to go 1 year at a time. He's 30.
Yep.
And he shouldn't be signed for more than 1 year. We've got Weed developing, and if not at the start or during the year, then by the end of next year he should be developed, or by the start of the season after, by 2019. So if Pedersen's happy to sign on for 1 and he is, then all's good to go. Great news for everyone.
Just Destroy All in the chat room has said that David King said in the if the All-Australian ruck spot was decided by Cam Peterson's 8 weeks in the ruck, he'd be clear in front.
Yeah, I saw that. That was just on AFL 360. And Kingy, as always, had a swag of ruck stats for the top 8 ruckmen in the competition. And obviously there was no Melbourne player on the list. But at the end of pointing out all these stats, he said, that if you included Pedersen's 8 weeks, he'd be the leader by a mile. So it just goes to show how valuable he's been this year, both with Max in and out of the team, and with Jesse and Jack out too.
Yeah, I've been a big fan of him for a long time. Early on in the year,
he's a good kicker goal as well.
He's a great kicker goal, and the guy can take a mark, and he's a great tackler as well.
Yep.
So I'm a big fan. I mean, there have been games where he's sort of gone missing or for whatever reason, but he really has proven, he's proven that he deserves a contract extension, and we'll take that year by year.
And he's a classic competitor.
Yeah.
He does, as you say, his tackling's great and his attack on the ball. So he's very much made in the Goodwin mould.
Yeah. So we'll just talk about Maxi. I mean, he had those free kicks against him, but he wasn't. Was sort of beaten as well in the ruck. I thought not his best game.
No, it ebbed and flowed a bit, yeah. I thought he dominated early, or we dominated early.
Yeah.
Oliver, of course, had a sensational first quarter, and so did Dom Tyson, I thought. Tyson, when Tyson's playing footy like that, he's a gun, basically.
Yeah.
Excellent disposal, getting heaps of the footy, kicking goals. So great first quarter from those two. And, of course, James Harmes also. He was on fire in that first quarter, but it wasn't until I watched the replay that I saw how much other good work he did in the rest of the game. And we've seen it a fair bit this year. He's hard running.
Yep.
He runs really hard both ways. He's good at creating space and getting into space at half forward. He finished off his work on the weekend too, which was good to see, capitalising.
It wasn't just the 3 goals that he kicked, which were fantastic because he sold a few dummies and was able to finish off and kick goals. But he also was involved in at least 2 goals in the first quarter. It's just really sort of coming into that game. There was a question mark over him earlier on in the year, I think, but I think he's now showing, why the coaches had faith in him, and this is an absolute credit to Goodwin. He's sort of seeing things 2 moves ahead of all of us. And
I think he's improved his game. I thought it was his best game for the club on the weekend, Harmes, and it wasn't just the 3 goals because he's done that before. I thought just some of his other work across half forward was really good, including in the second and last quarters. So well done to him, and well done to the man whose name we often mention alongside Harmes, and that's Nibbler.
Yep. Great game too.
He's also one of his skills is just finding space in forward 50, and he just does that really well. When we're looking to hit someone up, and he's found a bit of room. So Nibbler's going quite well too. Also,
there was a guy who played on the weekend who was returning to the team, and I thought he was one of our better players, and sort of found a new position for himself. Angus Brayshaw, what a return!
Oh, it was superb, wasn't it? Couldn't have been better for him, including the hit.
Yeah.
Even though at the time, the entire MCG sort of held its collective breath. But it reinforced for him that he was good to go and he could handle a strong hit, and just would have given him the confidence to really attack the footy. And he was back in the game he was back on his feet within seconds, but, he got a whole bunch of possessions really soon after. Yep. So it didn't throw him in any way. And they were really good possessions. He took a couple of good marks and used the ball well. It was the best of Angus Brayshaw, the Brayshaw that we saw in his debut year. And glad that we all got to applaud him when he first came on and when he came back to the bench for his first rest. And the best thing about it, and if you haven't watched it, it's worth watching, look at his post-match interview on the club website, because you see how much it means to him and how difficult it would have been for, during the year, and the doubts he would have had, and just how overjoyed he was to overcome them and be back out on the G playing in front of a big crowd with the Ds.
Yeah, and in such good form, because if you recall, he got injured in the twos, but the reason he was in the twos was because he got dropped. So his form was down at the time, so that couldn't have helped his general mood with how his footy's going, and just to see the way he played and the ferocity. I mentioned the tackle earlier. If you follow us on Facebook, go have a look. I put up a thing today for just a little clip of that tackle, and it was just inspirational stuff. It was a perfect
So give him a
tackle.
pre-season next year, and he'll be a gun.
Yep.
He is a gun.
It's like having a new
always
recruit,
thought that.
a new recruit in the team late in the year. So, that's fantastic. I will mention if you want to call the show, you can call us. We love getting calls from fellow Demon Landers. 03 9016 3666, or you can Skype us on Demonland 31. We know you can call in because we've had people call in before. Give us a call and you can talk to us about anything that we're chatting about tonight or any other topic you want to bring up, something that we miss. So
you know who was back to their best form on the weekend after a little bit of a quiet patch was Jaden Hunt.
Yes.
Got a lot of the footy, particularly early, and after first having that long running shot from 50, which he missed, he then lowered his eyes in the 3 or 4 times that followed that and found a target every time, I think.
I thought
it was a great game.
A few times when he was running in later on after that first one, I thought that perhaps he'd lost a bit of confidence to be able to just... Because I'd liked him to back himself and to have a shot at some of those times, but,
he has
people
kicked
get
those goals
that
before.
he has. He kicked one against Hawthorn last year. But
one
people
against Carlton.
People get a bit frustrated with that and want him to sort of lower his eyes. And he did that a few times and gave a short pass off and found someone. But I love it when he gets the ball and just runs and sort of puts the jets on and burns past his opponents. It's great to watch.
Yep.
We talked about Oliver just again, superb in the midfield. I think he was amongst the coaches' votes. And we've got a call coming in, so let's take that. Hello, you're on the Demonland podcast. Who am I talking to?
Oh, good, mate. Okay, so I'm Adrian from Adelaide, long-time D supporter, but first-time caller, and just enjoying your podcast tonight, and the chat with Russian I thought was really good.
Oh, thank you.
I just have a question about Jack Watts. Obviously, he was in the twos last week and had a reasonable run with Casey, and I was having a chat to a mate today about whether he should come back or whether he needs to stay in the reserves and sort of serve his penance, because obviously prior to injury he was playing really well, and since his return, his return from injury, his form has struggled. So I wasn't sure what your thoughts were on that, whether he should come back or perhaps give Weideman and other guys more opportunities.
It's a great question, and it's being hotly debated, as probably you would have seen on the forum. And I don't know whether you've logged on just recently, but the VFL report from Justin Plapp has just lobbed in about half an hour ago. And it was complimentary without being gushing in its praise. And not really a ringing endorsement. So signs of improvement. He's capable of being better. So I'm not convinced that they're going to bring him back this week. And
that's interesting. Okay.
I didn't see the VFL game, so I think that.
No, I live in Adelaide, so I don't see much VFL action, unfortunately. But I just think for us to be a chance in September, we really need Jack to be up and going. I think he's pivotal to that. But obviously, if his form doesn't warrant it, then that's another subject. So it's it was interesting to hear that report. Absolutely.
Did you see the seniors game on the weekend? What did you think of Sam?
I did. Yeah, we actually travelled from Adelaide to watch it. My wife and I. She's a Crows fan, and I'm obviously a D's man. So we're both very happy in the end. So it was great to get to the G and watch the boys play. Absolutely loved it. It was one of the better weekends we had this year, and really enjoyed the game. I thought Pedo was outstanding. His game was, sensational, and Jonesy led from the front as always, and it was good to see him back as well. But yeah, I loved the game. It was a great team effort, absolutely.
How often do you come over for games?
We normally come once a year. We normally come Queen's birthday weekend, but we couldn't this year due to other commitments. But we made the effort to come last weekend, and really enjoyed it. Always loved coming to Melbourne. It's a great place to visit as well. And going to the Mecca, going to the G, I should say, it's always a great experience. And when we win, it's even better. Absolutely.
Well, if you
Well,
would,
you might get first dibs on tickets if we end up playing Port in the
Yes,
final.
yes. I've got a few
so,
Port mates in Adelaide, so there's every chance I'll have to put up with them if we happen to play them in Adelaide. So, if any Demon Landers need accommodation in Adelaide, they're welcome to stay at our place, so it's not a problem as well.
all right, there you
generous
have
offer.
If that happens. We've got still 2 more games to go, so can't get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah,
But, we'll wait and see.
I don't want to get ahead of myself just yet. We're still
No,
got a lot to go.
I know what history's like, mate. So I don't want to go there just yet. Let's wait till we get there, and we'll go from there.
Well, if you would have gone to the Queen's birthday game, you would have seen Jack Watts at his finest, sealing the game.
I know.
For us.
I watched it from home. Yeah. He played really well that day.
So you went to the game this week. I guess when Jack Watts, the whole Jack Watts being in the equation, I guess there's another person that needs to be talked about, and that's Sam Weideman.
Absolutely,
because
yeah.
he looked a little bit lost on the weekend.
He did. I thought in the first quarter he presented himself. He crashed a few packs and gave a few handballs, but I thought as the game got on, he did struggle a bit. So whether that was a fitness thing or a form thing, I'm not sure. And also, I think he had Carlisle on him originally at the start, and he sort of struggled with that matchup. But then I'm also thinking this week of Brisbane not having such a good, strong backline, he might flourish a bit more, particularly if T-Mac can be a bit more up forward as well. So it'd be interesting to see how Goody and the coaching staff handle that one. Absolutely.
Yep, got it in one. It's going to be fascinating.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I
no worries.
Well, thank you for calling and joining us on the Demon Land
No worries,
podcast.
my pleasure. Thank you very much.
All right, and
we'll lob up at your place for finals in 3 or 4 weeks.
No worries. The invitation's out there, pending confirmation.
No worries.
All right.
All right, thanks, boys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
Always nice hearing from other Demon Landers. If you want to join the conversation, let us know what you thought of the game. 039016 3666, or you can Skype us Demonland31. We've also got a chat room, demonland.com/podcast. I should have mentioned that before the Jamar interview. I should write these things down so that I say it at the top of the show. But demonland.com/podcast. We've got a live chat. You can ask us questions there, or use one of the phone numbers that are on that page to give us a call.
Or talk to your fellow Demonlanders. George and the Outers, usually in the chat room, destroy all. Can usually be counted on to be in there, cracking gags. So tends to be a pretty, good place to hang out.
Yeah. So
on a Wednesday evening.
If you've got nothing better to do, then join us and the 92 other people currently listening at the moment. Weideman, he did look a little bit lost, as a caller said. He was crashing a few packs, but he's really got to start taking marks, and I guess, putting some pressure on the scoreboard to be an asset to the team. And I've said he will eventually, he'll get there, but I don't know. I don't know if he's ready.
I don't know if
he's
required to take marks at the moment. Goody seemed pretty happy with his performance in the post-match presser.
Yep.
I thought we were quite critical of him on the day.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he was a bit better once I saw the replay, but he's still
he's young, and
he's young,
and they take time. Younger big men.
Not only that, but he's still got growing and filling out to do. So he gets pushed out of contests a bit, even though he is a good competitor.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason why, he looks lost, because he's the chat room is funny, so you should go in there. Now I've completely lost my train of thought.
To talk about that he needs some filling out, and I think I think a pre-season under his belt will do in the world.
Another year or two, and
because we know
he's going to be fine.
We know he's got the goods. Like he's talented. He'll get there. I
laughed because Simon Goodwin has made a surprise appearance.
Yes,
in the chat room, and he's got that Goody game face. So that's why I laughed.
T-Mac going down back, he just proved how versatile he is, because there were a number of times he had some that punching away and spoiling. the guy really can play at both ends of the field. And
arguably his best year at the club, T-Mac.
Yeah.
And he'd have to be running third in the BNF, wouldn't he? It'd be Oliver, Hibberd, then T-Mac. And I don't know which way Oliver Hibberd will go, 1-2, but T-Mac is surely third, wouldn't he?
Yeah, it all depends
Jeffy,
on how they give the votes. It's I'd say Oliver's probably number one. But then again, Michael Hibberd does his job each week, and they usually give those votes based on.
It's going to be close at this stage, isn't it?
Well, we've got the Demonland Player of the Year, which of course is probably the worst indication. Does have Oliver Hibberd 1 and 2. It's then followed by Nathan Jones and Tom McDonald, but Nathan Jones has missed a number of games. So Tom McDonald, Neville Jetta, Jack Viney, Jack Watts. Look, it's between Oliver and Hibberd. I think no one will get close to him, but yeah, you're right. Tom McDonald's probably.
And which of those players makes the All-Australian squad?
That was another thing. So the AFL.com.au website released. Well, this is an official thing, but they sort of, from every club, they named sort of who the prospective sort of guys are, and they named 4 from the Ds, and there's no surprise. There was Clayton Oliver, Michael Hibberd, Neville Jetta, and Jeffy Garlett. And that's sort of who could make it possibly for the squad of 40. Now, I would say I think Michael Hibberd will be robbed if he doesn't make the actual team. I don't think Oliver will make it, and that's not because I don't think he doesn't. It's not that he doesn't deserve it, but I don't think they'll put him in there. There's a few other darlings of the AFL that will get in before him.
Someone said in the thread not long ago, it's a hot midfield.
Yes.
So if Oliver can, squeeze in perhaps on the bench, then that'd be
I think
pretty awesome.
I think that's the best he can hope for is getting a slot on the bench.
If Howe gets in ahead of Hibberd, I will absolutely poke my eyes out with a fork.
I wouldn't be surprised. They love Collingwood, and they want to keep Collingwood happy. And there's my conspiracy theory for the day.
That is a conspiracy theory.
Neville Jetta, whilst we all know how underrated he is in the eyes of the AFL, he's got not a chance of making it, and that's because he is underrated by
he'll get in the squad.
I would love him to get in the squad. I hope he does, but I don't think he'll get into the team. Even though I think he's a great player and one of the best small, if not the best small.
Isn't he?
Yeah, but for some reason he just doesn't get, that credit that he deserves, and they always throw that underrated tag along with it, as if that's going to make it all okay. But yeah, and then Jeffy Garlett, I think, has had a fantastic year. Look, Eddie Betts, very hard to, they love Eddie Betts. But Jeffy,
Garlett hasn't had a good.
I think his last
few
month.
weeks.
I think his last month will cost him, and I know he's had issues. He had a relative pass away. He's been back and forth from WA, I believe, in the last couple of weeks. So, there's training stuff that he's missed and all that. So.
Having said that, he only needed the ball to bounce his way a bit better on the weekend. He still would have had his usual 3 or 4 goals. So,
and look, we said on the day early for 3 quarters, Hannon and Garlett didn't get a sniff, didn't go near it. But look what happened in the last quarter. All it takes
3 quick goals from
both of them. From both of them. So.
And then Jeffy nearly had actually, like Hannon, 2 in a minute because he nearly got one out the back after he kicked that first one, but the ball just sort of bounced awkwardly and he didn't get it. So for someone like Jeffy, it really can just be the bounce of the ball, just doesn't go your way on a certain day. So.
And whilst we're talking about Hibberd, both Hibberd and Lewis affected. Hibberd defected a spoil late in the game, and then Jordan Lewis got on the ground and picked up
put his head down.
Yeah, put his head down, picked up the ball and got it out to got a handball out, and I just want to applaud those efforts. That was just that's what you watch footy for, and it's those type of efforts that win you games and get you into finals.
Well, Hibbard made that kind of spoil against Collingwood in that passage of play that led up to the Watts goal. So we've seen that from him a few times. And look, I've been disappointed in Lewis generally, but there have been 3 occasions this year, at least, where I've been so grateful for his presence.
Yeah.
One, he was in exactly the right spot in the final seconds of the West Coast game, so that as they went forward, basically on the siren, he took the mark in their forward line. He sealed the Carlton game with his little trick with Nibbler.
Yep.
And that passage of play on the weekend, when I think it was either 4 points or 10, I can't remember, but basically saved a certain goal there. So he's been really important at a few pivotal moments over the year, even though perhaps his disposal hasn't been great all the way through.
All right. Well, I think that that sort of wraps up the game. I think we've talked about most players. Maybe there's one more player we can talk about. Christian Petracca, I think, has been a little bit out of sorts, hasn't been sort of getting into the games. You feel sometimes he's on the cusp of doing something, but he's been a bit down. People have sort of said on the boards perhaps he's carrying some type of injury or something, or maybe needs to be rested. I don't know what to do there, because obviously he's a talented footballer and you don't drop.
I don't know why you'd rest someone 2 weeks before they're likely to get a rest anyway.
Yeah.
And particularly someone of Petracca's talent. And
unless he was carrying an injury, but that's based on absolutely nothing. So we'll leave it up in the hands of the coaching staff.
I didn't think he was great watching the game live, but watching the replay yesterday, I think his sort of inside work was pretty good. We just didn't see the outside stuff that sometimes go with it. So he seemed to be sort of in packs and shuffling the ball out and getting little hand passes. He
does do that.
A few intercepts here and there. So I thought he was okay. And the notion that we would rest him is, to me, ridiculous. I bet you now Goody comes out and rests him for the week just to make a fool of me. But, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. And you know what? I think, I don't know. To me, if you rest players, I don't know. It depends. Look, if they've got injuries, I was going to say it could smack of a bit of arrogance resting them going against the bottom team. But I don't think the coaches are going to take the game lightly, and I don't think the players will either. The only thing, we've talked about the game, but we didn't sort of touch on the Saints' comeback. We were going to talk about it in the terms of, sort of the MFCSS type of thing, but was it a worry that we blew a pretty big lead? That first quarter was fantastic. The start of the second term was good. I thought we had most of the ball in the second quarter, in the first part of the second quarter, but failed to sort of capitalise and probably go up a few extra goals. And then we let them kick a couple in a row. Are the blowing of these leads, or is that a worry?
No, I don't think so. It happens with a young, tiring team, and it just happens in footy.
And I thought we were pretty cooked in the third quarter as well. We
steadied really nicely.
Yeah.
And the last quarter was strong. So, St Kilda, they're not a great team, but they're not easy beats. No. So to dominate them for 3 out of 4 quarters, I think was pretty good.
And look, we are obviously a new Melbourne team, because the Melbourne of old would have lost that game. And we've said that in a number of times this year, where we've stood up in the last quarter. This is the new D's. But I do want to see 4-quarter efforts. I would, look, we need to win these next two games because I don't want to have. If we lose one, we can still pretty much make it. It's going to depend on percentage, and I've done the numbers with a few different scenarios, and we can still make it. But I don't want to have to rely on that because percentage it could be the killer of us, and that's why games like this, when we had a good lead and blew it, that could come and bite us in the bum. But we're the masters of our own destiny at the moment, and 2 wins gets us into the finals. That's simple as that.
Yep.
All right. Someone is making their return to football this week, sort of in different circumstances to Angus Brayshaw. Tommy Bugg is available for selection. Your thoughts? I thought I would put a controversial thread up on Demon Land to sort of feel out. Does he get straight back into the seniors? Does he have to earn his way back through Casey? And it was sort of quite a polarising bit of a debate. What are your thoughts?
Well, he's not really best 22 for mine. And this is the problem when you get yourself suspended for 6 weeks. Other blokes go past you. And we spoke about Alex Neil-Bullen at the top of the show. Neil-Bullen is doing very well what Tommy Bugg does, which is find space at half forward. And Nibbler is arguably a better set shot than Bugg. No way does he come straight back for mine, and I think he'll struggle to get back generally. There's just others ahead of him at the moment, including Christian Salem, who's not in the team.
81.94% of people agree with you. The 127 people said he's got to come back through Casey. 28 people, that's 18%, said straight into the seniors. Look, some people made the argument that during that period where we had won a couple of games, he was one of our better players. Does that not hold any sway, or his actions of...
No, but that was then and this is now, and who would you drop for him?
No, well, look, we had a win this week. It's very hard to drop anyone, and we'll probably talk about that shortly, which we will be talking about in a second. We may as well talk about it now.
He does need to earn respect back.
Yep.
Nasher made a good point in that thread today that, he sucked he started the business with the Swans. He psyched them into it and psyched himself out of it. Now, that's letting your team down in a very bad way because he didn't get a kick after the incident.
We had lost that game already by then. I don't think that was... I understand what you're saying.
It was pretty early.
Yeah. They dominated us in the first quarter. They just didn't have scoreboard domination.
He gave us nothing after, losing his cool. So he needs to learn how to keep his cool, or keep performing when he does dish it out. So,
well, it'll be interesting to see. It sounds like he will go through Casey at least one game. It'll be interesting to see when we're here this time next week.
We're not talking about a certain best 22 player. We're talking about a fringe player. So,
well, we've had a few fringe players.
Under no circumstances would he come straight in for mine.
Yep. Look, we've had a lot of fringe players throughout the year, and they've sort of cemented their spot. So there's no doubt he's not going to be straight in the team. I think he'll be playing at Casey this week, and it'll be interesting if he has a good game at Casey. We'll be sitting here next week to talking about this exact same thing: who comes in and who goes out for the Collingwood game, and be interesting to see if his name's there. Injury list. I think there's a few people that possibly could be injured. Do you know anything about Oscar McDonald? They said that he had some rib injury, but I didn't see him on the injury list.
No, I can only presume he's fine.
Viney...
and that was in that spoil that Hibbard made. Because Oscar's body was right in there too, and he got crunched.
Yeah. Jack Viney, someone said, or it was reported that he was on crutches, he's very sore, but I'm pretty sure I mean, I saw him after the Port Adelaide game, which was his first game back. I saw him the next day, and he was on crutches, and apparently he was on crutches because he's being told that's how he's managing his injury. So I'm positive that this is the same reason.
I think it's just taking the weight off the foot more than anything else.
For the next few days after a game, he was taking the weight off the foot. So I don't think there's anything in that, and I don't think that unless he actually is injured, more so than a managing of that, because he had surgery not long ago. So I'm not worried about that yet. We talked about Pedraca, whether he needed a rest or not. That's won't worry about that. Hogan, there was a report, and I don't know if that was based on our interview last week with Demons assistant coach Troy Chaplin, which you can hear if you go to soundcloud.com and search for Demonland. Apparently he resumed contact work, and there was an article in the Australian saying that he may be back as early as next week, meaning this week. I doubt it. I don't think that.
Yeah, I doubted it when Chaplin said it, but it was just good to know that he was back training and testing out the shoulder, and we saw vision of that, and the club posted on Instagram or Twitter a short time ago shots of him at training again today. So, I wouldn't have thought he's in the mix for this week, but it'd be great to see him back the week after.
Yeah, definitely. So, who do we make any changes this week? I mean, let's presume there's no one's got an injury. Is there anyone pushing to come in? I guess Watts is the Watts Weideman question. That's probably out there, but other than that,
Billy Stretch, is in the conversation, I suppose.
But then who?
I haven't read the full VFL report yet. I've only seen the Watts, the Watts appraisal. So
who comes out?
One of the suggestions, I'm just in that thread at the moment, is Stretch for Wagner.
Well, they're sort of different. I think Wagner came in because of Salem. He sort of came in to replace him.
I don't mind Wags at the moment.
Yeah, I think he had a good game. There was a couple of things. I think he fluffed a few things, but everyone fluffs something, here and there. I liked him. I think he had some good attack on the ball and, some good delivery into the forward half of the ground. I'm happy to keep him. Not just because he is, we sponsor him at Demonland, so I've got a bit of a vested interest there.
Speaking of vested interest, Drunken167 just posted in the changes thread a short time ago, and he, of course, is Declan Kilty's brother. Okay,
I didn't know that.
That Declan killed it on the training track today, outmarking both Watts and Frost, and got some nice praise from the coach.
Well,
so
it's interesting because I was watching the coach's presser. Well, it was his presser or after the game, and he mentioned Kelty as well. So, I mean, I
think he had a really good game on the weekend. So,
look, I wouldn't be surprised. We've seen, and that's another Corey Maynard. He could possibly, get in the team,
and Frost. So,
I wouldn't be surprised if we see another debutant before the year is even out. This is what Goody does. He's not afraid to sort of make those changes and play, in an important game to play a first gamer. I get the impression that he's not afraid to make those type of moves and take risks, which I guess is a good thing.
I'd be surprised, but as you say, he's nothing if not adventurous. So, I suppose Declan could come in and go back, and Tom Mack could go forward.
So, were you saying his brother posts on Demonland?
Yep, Drunken167.
And have you verified this? Have you seen his driver's license?
I'm surprised you don't know. It's common knowledge.
Oh, okay. All right. I didn't know. Because we had a thread today on Demonland. Someone posted a thread about how many current and past players read and post on Demonland. and I guess we don't know sort of that information.
Well, you could go through everyone's registration information, possibly.
I wouldn't do that, and even if I did, I wouldn't be telling you or anyone else. Well, I might tell you, but no, just kidding. No, I don't know.
I would have thought none.
Yeah, look, I was when I was went to a players sponsors function after the Port Adelaide game, and that was just prior to us interviewing Jaden Hunt, and I was just sort of chatting with him for a little bit because we sponsor him, and I was just sort of teeing up, the time that we'd give him a call for the podcast, and he goes, "Oh, so what's Demonland?" And like he had no idea what it was. I said, "Oh, it's just a forum." I sounded like a bit of a geek probably to him, just telling him what it was. For the people who can't play footy, this is what we do.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I guess that people are on. Someone said that Colin Garland used to post on Big Footy before he got drafted. So, look, these kids are, before they become footballers, are using the internet and presumably go onto some forums or even, well, these days it's a bit different because social media is sort of a big thing and there's people, in Facebook groups having discussions and all that. So,
you could. It's possible that James Harms, for example, who was a Melbourne supporter, was. It might have been on the forum before he ever got drafted, just growing up.
Yeah.
Because Demonland's been around long enough to have...
Yeah, since 2000.
These guys are young, so...
Look, I don't know. People have said over time...
Do I think David Neitz sort of, is David Neitz on here? No, I wouldn't have thought so.
Yeah, look, I've heard over the times that, and I don't know how true this is, that players have been told, and not just at the D's, players from all clubs have been told not to, read stuff online. But apparently now with social media and Twitter, it's becoming even a bigger thing to the point where some players are quite affected by what is said about them on social media. Well, particularly with platforms like Twitter, where you've got almost direct access to the players, at least on Demonland, the players can choose not to go on to it and see, but some of these players have, they have a profile on, a platform like Twitter, they're where they can be directly attacked. They've got a presence on Twitter, and people can just write whatever they want, anonymously. They're writing stuff that you wouldn't say to them if you were face to face with them, and that can wear
Matt
down.
Jones was was the subject of a story a couple of months ago about this exact topic, and he's obviously one that did take some of the criticism online to heart, like on his social media account, and reading some of those. Some of the comments that he talked about, and we see some of that kind of stuff on Demonland. It's pretty severe, and there are ways. There are ways to do it really, and ways not to. And some of the language that people use, they would never say face to face to anyone, let alone a player for the club that you supposedly barrack for. So.
Well, it's funny. Well, this happens on, sort of sites like Demonland and Big Footy, and the other clubs have fan sites as well, and it's usually because people are anonymous. And I always thought it's because people are anonymous, they think they can say and do whatever they want without any repercussions. And us as moderators, whatever we try to, we don't want to. Stifle discussion, but we also don't want people outright attacking, individuals, so we do whatever we can.
Destroy All's just made the very valid point in the chat room that it's maybe opposition players are posting as trolls. So, some of the abuse perhaps, Tommy Bugg is behind it, posting probably under a pseudonym. So, that's a possibility, I suppose. Try and get your opponent off his game.
It could
psychologically.
Be. Are you ready? the point I was making is that I always thought it was the anonymous aspect that allowed people to sort of say what they want. And you're not on, I know you're not on Facebook, but Demonland has a Facebook page, and I occasionally post some stuff on there, stuff from the thing. One of the things I wrote was about the news about Jesse Hogan. So we had a picture of Jesse Hogan up there, and with the news that he may be back sooner than we think. And there was some people people on Facebook post as themselves, and there was some quite harsh criticism. I thought of Jesse, that people saying, "Oh, he's not in our best players anyway. We play better without him." And I always thought, almost people saying that he's crap and we should trade him. And these are people, posting under their own name. I don't know. I just I always thought people are more likely to do that when they're anonymous, but it turns out that people can be savage as anything, using their real names. So I don't know. That just surprised me.
Yep.
So, well, I guess no changes.
Now the poster David Neitz is my dad.
I want a paternity test, actually.
Yeah, we should demand that. It says Big Nita ain't on here, but I am. And I think he did post in the thread earlier in the day that he is David Neitz Jr. So I think there was someone claiming to be Matt Phoebe in there as well.
I think you're
and claiming that he and Tingay posted all the time. So I think
you're missing
lies and deceit is at work here.
Yeah, I'm going to require 100 points of ID to confirm your identities. So well, I think we'll leave it there for this week. It's a big game. It's our last home game for the year. We do play the last round at the G, but it's our last game. Oh, and before we talk about the last game, the crowd this week, I was much happier with the attendance we had this week as opposed to the attendance we had a couple of weeks ago, where it made a little bit of a big deal out of the Port game. But that initiative, the welcome game, I thought was great, bringing in sort of first time footy goers to the footy, and hopefully we converted a couple. So good on the club for doing that, because it's good playing in front of a big crowd. Practice maybe for the finals.
Yep, more of that. So get down to the G this week. One last home game, so let's make it a big one. I just want to thank Mark Jamar for joining us tonight on the Demonland podcast. Thank my co-host, Grapeviney, and you can find us on iTunes or SoundCloud. Just search for Demonland, you'll be able to find us. Come back next week. We're live every Wednesday. We'll see you next week. Go D's. Go D's.